You are about to witness history in the making.
Good evening, everybody. It's Haydn here, and it's Pop Culture Gamers podcast. This is a bit of an unusual show this week because I'm on my lonesome. Unfortunately, Steve couldn't be here tonight. He's very busy currently packing up his house, so he's going to be away for the next couple of weeks. But we'll still continue with the show and hopefully get you all of the normal stuff that you actually like, just not from Steve's side. So, this week, starting off, not been doing much really, just been getting property out ready to rent out, got some building work to do. I can't believe the cost of skips these days. Last time I hired a skip it cost like 50 quid. It was over £200 to hire a skip to take away all of the rubbish, but hey ho. I did also go to the cinema this week. I went to see Joker, and I'll give you my thoughts on that later on. And I've also watched Rocketman, which is the Elton John biopic, whatever it is, which is quite good, and we'll talk about that later on as well. So, not much chat really to start off the show. As I said, we don't have Steve here, so it's a bit more difficult to hear me, bouncing off anybody. So we'll just move on to gaming this week.
No longer a dream, but a reality.
So, gaming this week, and first off, a little bit of news for all of you fans of The Last of Us. And it's not really good news either. The Last of Us Part 2 has been delayed. Despite the fact that they were advertising it quite heavily to be released earlier, the game has been delayed until the 29th of May 2020. So a good way away yet. And that's both Naughty Dog and Sony have released that. Evidently, there were some concerns regarding the level of polish on the game, and it wasn't up to the normal Naughty Dog standards that people are expecting them to deliver, which is the cause of the delay. So if you've been looking forward to The Last of Us Part 2, I'm afraid you've got a little bit longer to wait, but don't worry, there is Death Stranding coming very shortly anyway. Another bit of news, if you like, if you like Overwatch, then you might be interested in the fact that there is going to be an Overwatch 2. So, news on the next iteration of Overwatch. Evidently, there's going to be a brand new logo for it, although the logo that I did see just seemed like the old one, but with a 2 added to it. There's going to be some new game modes and maps, which you would expect, heroes, but PvE features as well, and also revised hero abilities for the PvE experience. So PvE is expected to be a 4-player story-based campaign, which is set in Rio de Janeiro, which should be interesting. And also Overwatch 2 will have a new mode called Push, which will be set out on a new map, and that's going to be based in Toronto in Canada. So if you're an Overwatch fan, or if you've played it before, then might be one to certainly look out for. In terms of gaming releases this week, there is a few, because we are starting to get into that sort of season now. So we have on the 29th, for the first lot, we have Close to the Sun, which is on the PS4, Xbox One and Switch. We have Disgaea 4 Complete on the PS4 and Switch, Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 digital only on the Switch, and also we have Super Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz HD, and Vampire, as well as Super Monkey Ball is going to be on the PS4, Xbox One and Switch. Vampire has already been on the main consoles, but this is Switch only. Wargroove is going to be the deluxe edition, and that's going to be on the PS4 and Switch. On the 31st, there's also Bee Simulator, so people will be buzzing about that one, and that's going to be on the PS4, Xbox One and Switch. If you can't have really escaped the adverts, but Luigi's Mansion 3 is out on the Switch on the 31st. Then there's also Remothered, Tormented Fathers on the PS4, Xbox One and Switch. And then finally on the 1st is Race with Ryan, which is on the PS4, Xbox One, Switch and PC. So it's nice to see that there is finally a PC in that little lineup of games. In terms of the Xbox Live and PS Plus games, there's still no news on that as I'm recording it at the moment, so unfortunately going to have to tell you that next week, which will probably mean that you've got the first lot of them anyway. But also always keep an eye on Epic Game Launcher. Now, in terms of Epic Game Launcher now, there is currently free, and I think it is until about midway through the week next week, Layers of Fear Masterpiece Edition and Cube 2. And then coming after that is Soma and Costume Quest. Now, I'm reliably told by our good friend head chef Alan that you don't actually need to use your PC and download the Epic Game Launcher in order to book these. In a matter of fact, you could just use any browser, go to the Epic Games website and actually just put these into your collection. They are free. You can keep them forever. If you're not a PC gamer presently, it's always worth just booking them anyway, just in case you suddenly decide, you know what, I'm going to get a PC. And also with the way that laptops and everything are coming on these days, and if you do get laptops, it might not be able to run some of the games now, but in a couple of years, then you've got another few extra games to play because it'll run on newer equipment. So, just a little bit of advice for you guys there. Okay, so in terms of gaming this week, my gameplay has really changed an awful lot recently because I've got Steve's bug and I've become completely obsessed with Shadowkeep to a quite unbelievable amount actually, because I have spent, I'm just trying to actually see how long it is, but I've spent a lot of hours playing that game in the last month. In a matter of fact, I think it's around about 130 hours that I've spent on the PC on that game, which is a ludicrous amount of time. It's about 5 hours a day. I don't know where on earth I've got the time. It's 132 hours. So that's PC only. And I know I can be exact on the timing for the simple reason that the Destiny 2 was only released on the PC in terms of Steam this month, so it's actually coming up with my timing, so I know it's exact. So that's an awful lot of time, and currently that's meant I've got good progression in terms of my characters. So if you're not already aware, the way that Destiny is working now is actually quite a bit like Fortnite in terms of the seasons. So you have 100 levels of the season, which is shared between your 3 characters. So if you choose to use 3 characters, you don't have to use them all. But basically, any time that you do a bounty, a quest, or whatever, you get XP. That XP then goes into your season, and then it unlocks rewards. Now, if you're used to the sort of Fortnite kind of style, then it's very, very much like that, really. It even down to the showing you the free version of the season and the paid for version of the season with the unlocks for each one correspondingly. So, there's something on just about every level of the paid for one where they're a bit few and far between on the other. But there is an awful lot for you to be able to go at. So I've been doing that. I'm currently levels either 76 or 78 on the season, and there's 100 levels on there. Obviously, the main thing is that when you've done your 5 levels in that week, then your progression slows down tremendously, because I think that they're half the XP or something like that. But, you can then obviously go on to your other characters and that. So, as well as that, you've also got your light levels, which is your power level for your character. So at the moment, I've got my Hunter at 957, my Warlock is at 949, and my Titan is at 946. So that's terms of light level. So that's their level of power. And I've completed the campaign 3 times for Shadowkeep as well, 1 on each character. So now what it is, it's about doing these things called strikes, which are basically 3-player missions where they do matchmaking. You can change the level of light difficulty that it is. The default one is 750, but these go up to 980, which nobody on the planet is 980 light level, because I think that the highest one is about 972. And the reason for this is that you can only progress so far in terms of your light level before you reach the cap. Now, there are a couple of caps in the game. The first cap is the 900 light level, where anything that any engrams which you pick up, which these contain all of the upgrades on the equipment, they stop at 900 from giving you any advancement. What they will do then is sort of default to the average of what your abilities are, and then you have to go for powerful gears and tier 1 and tier 2 gears, and then you've also got to go for, as they're not called, pinnacle gears, which is a really high end sort of stuff where you need a very high light level. Normally it's the master level, which is 980. So haven't done any of the 980 so far, because one of the strange things, and this is quite frustrating, is the switch off matchmaking, which when you're doing a strike, you don't need matchmaking on a strike. You need to know people on a raid because they have different mechanics involved in them. But that's just the way it goes. So your next cap is 950, which is the maximum that your equipment can go to in terms of value. Now you're saying, how come somebody can be 972 as a maximum light level on the planet at the moment? The reason being is because you also get a seasonal artifact, which your XP goes into, and it unlocks additional light levels. So your equipment might all be maxed out at level 950, but if you don't have an artifact, the maximum light level you'll achieve is 950. If you do have an artifact, then that goes correspondingly up. You'll never get to 950 without maxing out, or without getting your artifact quite high. So mine's at level 12 at the moment, so whatever my equipment level is, my light level is 12 higher. So that's the way that it works. So that's what you get for 132 hours in terms of Destiny. Like I said, you can do it across all of them. I've come up with a couple of issues for me personally, because I don't like doing multiplayer. I find no enjoyment in it at all. I don't mind multiplayer PvE, but multiplayer PvP, not interested at all. And I've got to a point where some of the quests which I'm doing, which you pick up missions going along the game, I've picked up some missions, and some of those now require me to either go into the Crucible, which is a PvE, or to go even worse, into the raid. Now, you've heard people talk about raids and stuff like that. These are 6-player experiences. The problem is that, with the exception of the first 2, when there was in Destiny 1, when lots of people were playing Destiny before a lot of people actually gave up, you could get a team together of people that you knew because enough people were playing it. Nowadays, while there's still a lot of people playing it, I don't know 6 people on the same platform that would be able to complete a raid with me. So what that means is that a lot of the high-end activities I am automatically disqualified from. They do some sort of matchmaking and stuff like that, but to be honest, I don't really want to do the matchmaking stuff. I just want to game with the people that I know. So it is something to be aware of, but if you're only ever going to be dipping out in and out of Destiny, to be honest, it's never going to be a problem for you. So that's where I am with Destiny at the moment. So now, Steve would have actually talked about a different game. He's been playing The Outer Worlds, but I haven't tried that yet. But I did go back to an older game, which has been going for 4 years now, which is Rainbow Six Siege. So in case you've never played this before, this is, well, either a single or a multiplayer game. There's different limitations in terms of modes for single players, but the idea is that you're either an invader or a defender of a property, as in, you know, you're the FBI or you're a terrorist sort of thing. So I played a lot of this game back a couple of years ago with different people in our community, and had a whale of a time with it. Really good fun. It's one of those unusual games where as you gain experience, and you can spend the XP once you've earned it. And what you do then is you can buy operators, so new characters for you to play in the game with different abilities. Or you can upgrade weapons or buy extra weapons and stuff like that. That mechanic is still in the game. The game on PC is really cheap at the moment. It's about £6.99. You do need to use Uplay. Even if you've got it on Steam, it then defaults back to Uplay. So, whatever way that you do it, just be aware of that. But it's a great game. So, single player wise, you get pitched against, say, 8 or 10 terrorists within a building, and you have to storm the building and kill all of the terrorists. Another type of mode is you have to storm a building and escort the captive out of the building alive. Or another one that is available to you is about finding and defusing a bomb. Now, you do have gadgets like remote control vehicles that can go under doors and stuff like that with little cameras on, and that sort of thing. The other side of that sort of single player element is in relation to you defending a place or a person. And you can put barricades up, you can do various different things within the game, and then AI characters will come in and try and find you in the building, racing against a timer, and try and kill you or the hostage, or you and the hostage. So that's the way that the storyline, well, it's not story, but that's the way that the missions work in single player. In multiplayer, it's more or less exactly the same thing, apart from instead of AI, you're actually using people. So, you have several different people on each level. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 8 on each side. And you use all of the same maps and everything, same type of operators. But people can only choose one type of operator once. So if somebody's picked the one that you like to use all of the time, because you were too slow selecting it or whatever, you've got to choose a different one. Which is fine, it's not a problem. But each one comes with their own different weapons and different equipment, blah, blah, blah. So it's really quite a good fun and great game. It's one of those games as well that has friendly fire, switched on. So, one particular, game I was playing of this, a couple of years back with some people from the community, it was storming Air Force One, was the mission, and we'd stormed Air Force One. I, went up into the upper deck of Air Force One, not realising it, fell down a hole. I fell down a hole next to, the person I was playing the game with, and they span round and shot me. Well, it was one of those sort of like funny sort of moments, so we had a really good laugh at it. But, so you can do that sort of thing and kind of like ruin your colleague's day in relation to that. But it was a bit of a laugh. The other thing that's actually quite nice as well is because you're doing this as squads as well. When you die, what happens on, I think, most of the modes is it then gives you a camera view of where you have died. So you can actually start to act as like a tactical advisor for anybody who is still playing. So if they come through your field of view there, you can actually let them know there is, somebody in this position. And then that sort of like gives them a bit of help for working it out. Otherwise, you can also do the same thing by just staying on the outside of the map and using the remote control vehicles to go in and have a really good look. So, it's definitely worth a look on the PC. It's probably more fun multiplayer. It is definitely the type of thing that you can do on a Friday night with the lads, or the lads and women, having a really good time, just doing a bit of multiplayer gaming. If that's your bag, then, this is a great game to try. And at the price of £6 something. And also recently, it was the same price on PlayStation as well. And I think it's actually quite cheap at the moment on the Xbox, marketplace. Definitely worth a look. Really great game to play, and it's been going out for 4 years as well. So it's stuck the test of time, I think. Anyway, that's it for gaming this week. So what I'm going to do is go over to movies, TV, and streaming.
In quest of a better life.
Alright then, movies, TV and streaming. And this week, a little bit of news for those of you who have Amazon Fire or Fire HD or Fire 4K sticks. And that is to let you know that Apple TV is now available on Amazon Fire Sticks. So it's just been released this week. So if you own either the Fire Stick or Fire Stick 4K, you can now access Apple movies and TV shows via the Fire Stick. The Fire Stick app supports movies up to 4K as well, and it also uses HDR10. However, what's not used at the moment is either Dolby Atmos or Dolby Vision. So there are reports that this will also be extended to some makes of smart TVs, which include TVs from Samsung and LG. But I understand in order to be able to qualify for it, you have to be using the newer TVs, i.e. the 2019 or later models. So it's just worth keeping in mind if you are looking for that. Obviously, with the way that people have always had digital copies of movies that have come with Blu-rays or whatever, you might have some old Apple TV shows or movies, which now you can get back. You can get back on a normal TV without actually having to have the Apple TV device, which is horrendously expensive. So I've tried this because I was aware that this was coming and had Fire TV 4K for quite some time, a few weeks now, and I've got to say it works really well. The quality is absolutely superb. One thing that I noticed using the Fire Stick is that Amazon plays fine, but Netflix is a little bit jumpy occasionally. Well, on Apple TV, it's as smooth as butter going on a hot toast. It's just absolutely perfect. So, that's 4K signal as well. And obviously don't forget as well, the Fire Stick is wireless. There is no, network cabling in it at all. In terms of it within the box, you literally get a USB adapter, you get the Fire Stick, and you get the shortest extension lead I've ever seen in my life for HDMI. It's about 4 inches. But the idea behind it is if you've got your TV flat against a wall, or, hooked up on a wall, which I have on mine, it means that you don't have this huge Fire Stick, because the Fire Stick is quite big. It's, trying to think about what sort of size, it is. It's probably about 3 or 4 inches, in length, enough to certainly, if you've got quite a flat TV on your wall, it's going to cause you problems. But with this device, it just allows you to have that bit of flexibility and, point your Fire Stick down or whatever, but also maybe just position it so that you're actually getting a slightly better signal, because, well, we know that aerials always act a bit weird anyway. When you plug it in, it works pretty easy. You can obviously connect it to your network. It'll probably do an update straight away. Well, sorry, I'm talking about the Fire Stick there. In terms of the app, when you download the app, it asks you, do you want to sign in using your phone? If you've got an Apple phone, if you click yes, it brings up with a little QR code. You scan the QR code. It comes up on your phone to say, do you want to open the link? You click yes, and then it says, do you want to connect to the Fire TV, with iTunes, or rather Apple TV? You click yes again. I think you had to put in a code for a member that's displayed on screen, just as an extra security caution. I can't remember, because I did it quite quickly. And then that's it. And then all of your movies, all of your TV shows that you've bought, or that you've had codes for, or whatever that you've registered with Apple, they're all there. So really, really incredibly simple thing to use. And the other thing as well is you've also got the Alexa voice as well when you're actually using the Prime, so you can actually just hold down the speech button and then talk, and get it to search for your shows or whatever that it is that you want. So well done, Apple. Finally come off your own equipment and actually moved out to other things. Hopefully this will mean that we can, now see people starting to use Android phones or whatever with some of the Apple purchases that they've done in the past, which would be really good. Great bit of news. Well done. Moving on to cinema releases. Not many this week. There is, on the 28th of October, we have Western Stars. On the 31st of October, there is Doctor Sleep, which is the follow-up to The Shining, if I remember rightly. 1st of November, we have After the Wedding, then Brittany Runs the Marathon, and then Sorry We Missed You. In terms of Blu-rays, there are a few Blu-rays coming out, although not many of them are that interesting. I think that probably the couple of stars of all of them are American Werewolf in London Special Edition Blu-ray. And also, if you saw it on Amazon Prime, the absolutely fantastic Good Omens Season 1 is out on Blu-ray, Steelbook and DVD as well. There's also Dragon Ball Super Part 8, episodes 92 to 104, if you're really into the Dragon Ball sort of universe. There is Terminator Salvation in 4K Blu-ray. There is The Last of the Mohicans, Blu-ray and DVD. There is the Wizard of Oz Special Edition, 4K, Blu-ray and CD soundtrack, interestingly enough. And here's one for all of you who are like me and in your late 40s. Then there is Wurzel Gummidge Christmas Special on DVD. So a little bit of John Pertwee with his character of Wurzel Gummidge, which was a scarecrow come to life who always wanted a cup of tea and a slice of cake. So really good, good old kids one from there. In terms of charts, we have Abominable at number 5. Number 4 is Zombieland Double Tap. Number 3 is a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon. At number 2 is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And at number 1 is Joker. So that's been 3 weeks out already, believe it or not. In terms of Blu-ray and DVD charts, we have moving up from number 58 to number 5, Avengers Infinity War. So, wow, why is that? Number 4 is Rocketman, down from number 3. Up from number 5 is, to number 3 is Avengers Endgame. At number 2, down from 1 is X-Men Dark Phoenix. And at number 1, new entry straight in, is Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, I've not seen King of the Monsters, Godzilla. That's the only one out of that lot that I've seen. But lots of movies there for you to have a go at. So, I think really it's about what I've watched this week. So, a couple of movies really. The first one is Joker. So I finally managed to get to go and see this film. And what can I say? This film is absolutely amazing. Joaquin Phoenix obviously plays the Joker, but this is not like the Joker that you see in the comic strips or on the previous Batman movies or on Suicide Squad. Gerard Leto's version of him. This is a much more realistic sort of Joker, I would say. The basic story is that Arthur is a clown who has a medical condition where he has basically fits of uncontrollable laughter, which normally occur in the most inappropriate of circumstances, but it's because of a brain injury. So Arthur lives and cares for his mother, who in herself has numerous problems, but also she and Arthur live in, pretty much poverty in the area of Gotham. His mother is completely obsessed by the Waynes, and particularly Bruce's father, and she keeps writing to him, asking for help and that sort of thing. Anyway, while doing his normal work day, because he is a clown as his actual job, but he does sort of like advertising and stuff like that. So those guys who have the small handheld billboards, and they do all of that, throwing them up in the air and spinning them around and that sort of thing. Well, he does that in this movie, although not that particularly that well. And anyway, he gets mugged when he's advertising a store. So a group of kids steal the board off him and then run off. He chases after them. They go down a dark alley. The billboard is smashed straight into his face, and then they're kicking him while he's on the ground while he's sort of laughing. And that's really when his life really starts to go into decline. Later on in the movie, and I'm not giving any real spoilers here, I'm sort of like just saying a couple of key things. He inadvertently stops an assault on a woman because of his laughter condition, where basically 3 thugs are, causing problems on the underground, but these are 3 thugs in suits sort of thing, but they are complete idiots, and they start making suggestive remarks to this woman who sat on her own. He starts his inappropriate laughter, and that's when they draw his attention, or he draws their attention to him. And that's when things really start to decline. And that is also where we start to see Arthur moving into the realms of the Joker. So it's really, really interesting. There's also another, sort of like bit to the plot as well, where, he and his mother watch a TV show, with, Robert De Niro. And De Niro sees Arthur's stand-up act, and has a film clip of it and shows it on his TV show, which at first, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is absolutely elated, and then sees that he's actually taking a mick out of him rather than being supportive. But he gets invited on that show at one point as well. The movie itself, it's full of surprises. As a superhero sort of movie, I know that the Joker's a villain, but as something in the superhero genre, I would say that this movie has a great deal of depth and a lot of messages to actually employ. There's a lot of character development in terms of, Arthur and his increasingly insane life as it goes on. And as a result of that, I would hesitate to say that you develop empathy for Arthur because, well, he's turning into the Joker. But at very least, you get an understanding of where the Joker is, where he's coming from, and what his motivations are, which are not anywhere near as two-dimensional as they are in the movies. So, or in other movies, or in the comic books and that sort of thing. And I mean, because the other thing that's really fascinating as well is that this movie is not action-packed for the most part, and it kind of uses that Breaking Bad sort of mechanic of no dialogue is better than some dialogue in some bits. So what you might see is Arthur looking at a picture or something that is sparking off a memory, and it's not sharing the memory with you, but it's actually showing you him going through a range of different emotions, which normally end up with that, maniacal laugh of the Joker's. So it's really, really interesting. I think that Joaquin Phoenix plays the role absolutely perfectly. He makes it believable. He makes it real. And, what more can I say? If you like the DC universe, heck, if you don't like the DC universe, this is a really good film to see. And I don't say this lightly. When I say, if I had to name a movie of the decade, this would be it. So, you don't get, from my point of view, you don't get much higher praise than that. It is a really, really good film. How it will stand up to multiple viewings, I don't know, but certainly on first impressions, I came out of that not expecting anything. I don't think I had any real fixed ideas in terms of what that movie was going to be about. But wow, when I've come out of the other side of it and seen all of that, that is really, really, a surprise for that type of movie. It goes in places that you wouldn't expect. The movie has come up with some criticism about its portrayal of mental illness and whatever, but I actually think that it is. It makes you understand people a little bit better in terms of some of the stuff that they're coping with, and the type of thing of like Arthur's on medication and he's getting support by somebody who doesn't listen to him, doesn't care, and then suddenly that support and the medication that he's receiving gets cut. So that's another sort of like subplot that's going on all around as well. And he has dark thoughts, and he's not somebody who has ever felt happy. So very interesting story, very interesting character development. Don't expect the Joker with like Jack in the Boxes and Harley Quinn in tow and that sort of stuff. It's just not going to happen in terms of this Joker. You do get to see Bruce Wayne within the movie as well, and I presume Alfred there, although I'm sure it was Alfred. So great movie to watch. Definitely recommend it. 10 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. So the next movie that I've watched is Rocketman. Now, Rocketman is the story about Elton John. It's another one of these musical dramas that Queen seem to have suddenly made popular. And it stars Taron Egerton as obviously Elton John. It's directed by Dexter Flexter. Put my teeth in. Dexter Flexter, who also worked with Taron when doing the Eddie the Eagle movie, because Taron was obviously Eddie the Eagle Edwards on there, but also Dexter stepped into the directorial shoes for Bohemian Rhapsody after Bryan Singer was fired. And just in case that you don't know who he is still, then if you cast your minds back many, many years ago to Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, that Guy Ritchie movie, then Dexter Flexter was Soap on the movie as well. So that hopefully will give you an idea of who he is. So the movie basically catalogues the earlier part of Elton's life, his family troubles, him growing up, his love and talent in music, his estrangedness with his, not estranged, but his lack of contact with his father, who is a very cold sort of figure. I think war or, army veteran certainly, and probably suffering from all sorts of post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff like that. Although that's not part of the story at all. And it goes up to certainly after he got married and divorced, and so on and so forth. And in terms of the style of the movie is actually, initially I thought, I'm just going to get a carbon copy of Bohemian Rhapsody here, because it starts very similar to Bohemian Rhapsody, as in the Queen movie starts with Live Aid and then goes backwards. Well, this one starts with Elton John coming in full dress with angel wings, a glittery outfit and horns, walking into an Alcoholics Anonymous group and says, "My name's Elton John and I'm an addict." And then he lists all of the things that he's an addict to: booze, drugs, sex, you name it. If it's something you can be addicted to, I think he was addicted to it. And the movie then plays out from the perspective of him reminiscing about what has happened to him. Now, that's probably where it differs slightly to the Queen one, because the Queen one was more like just a skip back in time. This is more like him stepping back. But where it differs significantly from the Queen one is in every other way. So, my fears were soon laid down when they went into the first musical number. Now, I know that it's a docudrama, but I was sort of expecting it to be like the Queen movie, but it wasn't. It ended up being something more like Down With Love, which had Renée Zellweger and Ewan McGregor on there. So, in other words, it just suddenly starts going into musical numbers. So he started to talk about his childhood, and then he sees in his sort of like mind's eye himself from years before, who's talking to him while he's at Alcoholics Anonymous and nobody else can see him. And then suddenly it just starts into a full dance thing with other actors dancing and stuff like that. Not in Alcoholics Anonymous, when he looks back in the past. I'm making it sound actually quite rubbish, but it was an enjoyable movie. I mean, the music of Elton John's fantastic, anyway. But in terms of this as a piece of entertainment, it was very good. How true to life it is, I don't know. I know that the Queen one came for a lot of criticism. But do you know what? It's a movie. They're entitled to do a little bit of artistic license. So, in terms of the movie itself, Taron Egerton, he's absolutely fantastic as an actor. You know, this is another way for him to show his range, but now this time it's within singing. And yeah, really enjoyed it as a film. I wish I'd got to see it at the cinema now to get that just sort of like higher, or rather big screen sort of take of the movie. And the last one to talk about today is Smallville. So if you cast your mind back to over 10 years ago, so you know the Wade's World doodly-doo sort of thing. Smallville was a very popular TV program, 15 years ago or so. Up until about 2011, I think was the last episode, so about 2001, 2011, where it had Tom Welling acting as Clark Kent. Not Superman at all, but the character of Clark Kent, and it was about him growing up within Smallville, and a lot of it was like the troubles of, you know, later school life in America, mixed up with the fact that when Clark arrived, there was a meteor shower, which rained down kryptonite and then made a load of, Monster of the Week, kryptonite mutants, shall we say, which is always how it seemed to be in every episode. Every episode's extraordinary powers was explained by the fact that, they were here during the meteorite shower. Yeah. And the reason why you're thinking, why on earth have you gone back to this? Well, first off, it's on Prime, the complete 10 series of it. And, you know, that means it's free if you're a Prime subscriber. But the other reason why I wanted to see it as well is because in terms of the Arrowverse, on the next Arrow, there are going to be multiple incarnations of Superman. And my understanding is that Tom Welling is actually reprising his role, as is Brandon Roth, as well. He's also going to be, donning the Superman, costume, as well as Supergirl's own, Superman as well. So that's going to be really quite an interesting thing, but it was enough to get me thinking, do you know what? I want to go back and I want to look at, Smallville again and just see what it was that I liked about it. And you know what? It's sort of like, it is definitely aimed at the younger sort of market, but I can still appreciate it, for what it is. You know, it's a creature of the week sort of sci-fi sci-fi TV series. So, anyway, I decided to start, watching it, and it's amazing some of the people who actually turned up in here. I mean, for those of you like the Duke of Hazards, you've got John Snyder, and he plays part of Jonathan Kent. And I have to admit, out of all of the Jonathan Kents that there've ever been, I would say that he's probably my favourite version of Jonathan Kent. You know, with Kevin Costner probably coming up a close second. But yeah, so, you know, and he made it all of his own. I'm into season 3 of this at the moment. Another actress who appeared on there was Annette O'Toole. Now, she played Martha Kent, and interestingly enough, it's not the first one of Superman's sort of shows and movies that she's actually ever appeared in, because she actually appeared in Superman 3 as Lana Lang. Now, Lana Lang was Clark Kent's high school sweetheart. And in this, I can't remember the name of the actress who actually played her at the moment. I think it's Kristen something, but I can't remember what her last name is. And she's a, you know, fantastically gorgeous looking actress. And she still is today. And she, you know, she played a really good role, a little bit whiny sometimes, but hey ho. But yes, and you know, she's gone on to other things. Michael Rosenbaum, played the part of Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor's very different in Smallville because Lex is not quite as evil. So when it comes to Lex here, he's sort of like looking for more friendship and that with Clark, and him and Clark become good friends. It starts off in the first episode where Lex Luthor driving his Porsche through Smallville, as you do, or rather outskirts of Smallville, has an accident, nearly runs into Clark, and then totals his Porsche, which then goes into the water, and Clark jumps into the water to save him. And a lot of the storyline is about Lex trying to figure out why he survived. But also there's other stories like, for example, Luthor Corp, which is controlled initially by Lionel Luthor, who is Lex Luthor's father. In terms of all of that, he's doing experiments on people with kryptonite and the meteor freak mutants, as it were. And there's lots of Luthor Corp hidden labs and stuff like that, which again becomes the, hidden lab of the week sort of thing. It's all very predictable sort of TV. You know he's going to win in the end. It did go, quite different when Tom Welling was no longer able to really be at school, and then he ended up working at the Daily Planet. By that time, Lois Lane was already on the scene. She's I can't remember the name of the actress, but again, another very talented actress who plays Lois Lane. And I have to admit, she's my favourite version of Lois Lane as well, with the possible exception of Terry Hatcher. But she appears about halfway through Smallville, and she ends up, developing a relationship with Clark that way. So, stepping away from really the comic books, she already knows Clark beforehand. So there's quite a lot to it. I mean, Terrence Stamp, you don't actually see Terrence Stamp in this, but he plays the voice of Jor-El. Now, he had a very, very big set of shoes to fill, because before Terrence Stamp did the voice of Jor-El, it was Marlon Brando. And I've got to say that I feel that Terrence Stamp's disembodied voice of Jor-El is actually, I quite actually like him as being Jor-El, to be honest. I was mentioning before about the rest of the series. So when Clark actually gets to Metropolis and he's working for the Daily Planet, then other Kryptonians come on the scene, like General Zod. So anybody who doesn't know, General Zod was somebody else who escaped from Krypton, who felt that Jor-El betrayed Krypton, and has it in for Clark, basically. More or less exactly the same as in Man of Steel, the movie, as well. So, there's lots of different sort of storylines. It's not all, teenage, I fancy this girl this week or whatever, and I'm oversimplifying it a little bit by saying Monster of the Week, but there's some good storylines in there. So that's that. Interestingly enough, one thing that is actually makes it quite difficult to watch is the actress Alison Mack. Now, if you don't realise, she played Clark's friend, who I've forgotten the name of her character completely at the moment. That's not really very good, is it? But she plays like a high school reporter kind of role within the school newspaper that there is there. Chloe Sullivan, that's who she plays, just remembered. So Alison Mack, there's been a lot of controversy about her in the last 12 to 18 months. because she was actually arrested in Brooklyn by the FBI on the 20th of April on charges of sex trafficking conspiracy, forced labour conspiracy, and some other charges in relation to her role in the NXIVM organisation. Now, I don't know what that is, but I understand it's a cult sort of thing over in America, or it was. And she pleaded guilty to racketeering charges in April and is currently awaiting sentence. So it just goes to prove that, you never know what direction life's going to take, but it is quite, because you think, wow, you've gone from this where, you were like one of the female leads in this show to these charges. It's quite unbelievable. But anyway, if you have never seen, by the way, Lois Lane was played by Erica Durance as well, and it's Kirsten Kruk who plays Lana Lang. So both very talented actresses. All right, so that's it. If you do like Superman, it's worth a watch if you've never seen it before, and it's on Amazon Prime, so it's not going to actually cost you anything to have a try, and maybe have a bit of a revisit just to remind yourselves about what it was all about, that their storyline, if it's going to be crossing over with the Arrowverse. Okay, so we're steaming along with the show today, obviously because we haven't got Steve with us. But we'll move on to your listener questions.
John, what's happening to us?
Okay, so listener questions for this week. You're only going to get one side of it, I'm afraid, folks. And the first one is Mark, and he's asking, is there an optimum scene setting for certain genres of games, i.e., futuristic sci-fi for FPS or Dungeons and Dragons environment for an RPG? Well, that's a good question, Mark. And I'd have to say, I don't really know. The reason why I would say that is, I don't think that a first-person shooter for, the Battle of Hastings in 1066 would be much cop, because you wouldn't be shooting anything. It'd all be, apart from bows and arrows, it would be swords after that. So I think that there are some games that don't fit certain sort of time frames. But as for futuristic sci-fi, you can have lots of different types of futuristic sci-fi. Look at the Anno series with Anno 2070 and that sort of thing. So they're city builders. You've got XCOM, which is more of a strategy game, or, Galactic Civilization's another example. And also, rather than a first person, what about third person shooters as well? Because if you do decide to stick to the shooter sort of side of it, then there's been great examples with Mass Effect, with Gears of War, and that sort of thing. So in terms of FPS, I think a lot of games stick to first person shooter when they're futuristic sci-fi, because, well, I think it is a complementary sort of thing. Whereas I do think that games feel more relevant when it's RPGs, when it's like Dungeons and Dragons. So something like, but then again, I suppose it's got RPG elements in, but I was thinking about the Shadows of Middle-earth and games, those ones, they're sort of like third-person action-adventure games. They're kind of a bit like Assassin's Creed, but in the Lords of the Rings universe, with a bit of strategy thrown in with all of that stuff that they did with capes and stuff, which was more of a pain in the backside, I think, than anything else. So, yeah, I kind of know where you're coming from in terms of it, but I don't think that it's quite as easy or narrow as that. I think that the scene setting and genre, they need to go hand in hand with the type of game that it is. And I think if it's wrote correctly, you could have more or less, anything as a first person shooter, any time period or whatever, although, bows and arrows, anything before we got guns, I don't think would be appropriate. But I must admit, I do agree, games like Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of game, does fit very well within the RPG, and that would probably be their best kind of place as well. Second question from Mark is, if you can play a game for over 1,000 hours, I think this is aimed at me and particularly Steve, for over 1,000 hours, but still not 100% the achievements or trophies, is that a failure of the system and or ridiculous achievement design? I'm gonna dispute that. I don't think it is an issue with the achievement or trophies failure or ridiculous design. I think what it is maybe, as is in the case with Destiny for both me and Steve, the trophies that we don't have are the ones to do with the raid. And that's because we don't do the raid. And if that is more of our sort of like semi-conscious decision not to. We could go in with randoms on the raid, but we choose not to, because for stuff like that, you need people to know what they're doing. So, to games like Destiny, where you play games like that, I think it's more of an indicative note that they've tied the achievement to certain forms of activities, which some players will not do. Do I think that's right? I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure whether or not I do think it's right or not. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I mean, for example, this week, I spent probably about 2 hours starting on a quest on Destiny, which I didn't know what the quest was particularly for. Carried on going, and then I hit a blank wall with getting to the stage of now going to the raid and do this with a fire team. So that quest is never going to get completed, and that's frustrating. Unless, of course, I can get people to come in and do it with us. But that is quite frustrating when you're playing a game for so long like that, and then you get something. I think that, and I think they've got better over time, but I do think that people like Bungie, when they make these sort of games, need to realise actually some people don't want to play, some of these high-end activities. Are just happy with the ones that they're already playing. So don't lock them out of stuff. I mean, another example is I got a quest from the Drifter in Destiny this week, and it was a Gambit one, and it actually said, the mission was about the Drifter. Do you side with the Drifter, or do you side with the Vanguard? Now, if you signed with the Vanguard, it meant that some of your triumphs that are in the sort of like ticky off list of things that you've done, you could never complete. Why? That's just stupid. That is really stupid. It's bad design, is that sort of thing, in my book. Anyway, moving on. Hope that answers your questions, Mark. And also to Mark and everybody else, thanks again for sending in questions every week. So, Jason Toon has asked, with the recent bundling of Bethesda's $100 Fallout First Service, do you think that they'll now be clubbed together with EA and Konami of the industry? Also, what's the worst company in gaming history? Well, this is all about the, I'm sure your question is all related to the Fallout 76 service thing, where they wanted to charge people for using the service now, when the game was supposed to be free, or rather not free from that sort of thing, but obviously it hasn't sold what they expected. I think that this is really pretty diabolical. And I know that I sound like a broken record when I talk about this. But I think that Bethesda since the days of the 360, early 360, when, Bethesda Studios really started to take a hold, I seriously think that Bethesda's a bad company because they release broken games, but nobody tasks them about it. It's all, oh, that's the Bethesda charm. That's rubbish. That is utter rubbish. They've released a broken game. Fallout 76 was broken. They fixed it, but look at how that's damaged that game and how many more people might have enjoyed playing that. So, I think with what they're doing now, I think that they're getting greedy. They don't concentrate on the customers or the customer experience. And I would say that they are one of the worst. I'm not saying that the games are bad at all. I know that I joke on with Steve and wind him up and saying Fallout's rubbish, whatever, but he enjoys it, and I completely respect the fact that he enjoys those games and anybody else who does. You enjoy what you enjoy. Beauty, as I say, is in the eye of the beholder. If you think flying upside down flying dragons in Skyrim when it was first released, or it crashing after so many hours when you're on a PlayStation, is an acceptable way of playing a game, knock your socks off as far as I'm concerned. For me, that ain't on. And that's why I stopped playing Fallout 3 when, after the second time when I got stuck in exactly the same place, in the environment. It's just, I just think it's appallingly bad. Really, really appallingly bad. And there's no, other than people not buying the games, there's no comeback on them. Really, no challenge. So, I'm going to put up there Bethesda as one of the worst now that they've started doing this money grabbing thing. But I think that you have to really try and work hard to beat EA. When you look back at some of the stuff that EA have done, cast your mind back, another Scooby-Doo moment. Cast your mind back to the 360 days and Mass Effect 2. EA came up with a solution to counteract people selling second-hand games. And what they brought out was the online pass cost. So if you bought the game brand new, you could type in the online pass, and then anything that was an online activity, you would automatically have access to. Now, what they did differently is that, to what other people did, was that didn't carry over to anybody else. It was only with you. So if you bought the game later, second hand, you would have to buy an online pass to play the online part of the game. The main part would still work fine, but the online stuff wouldn't. And you also lost out on a character as well in Mass Effect. EA, obviously also behind all of the FIFA cards and stuff like that. It's all, semi-gambling, shady kind of ways of doing stuff. It's all about earning money. I mean, them turning round and saying, that single player campaign games, nobody wants to play them anymore. And then everybody turning round and saying, well, that's a load of rubbish. And they go, oh, really? Do they literally understand nothing about what they're, what field that they're making games for? Who, other than EA, said, would really think that single player games, are not there? It wasn't that at all. That was just rubbish. People have always liked single player games, just like they like multiplayer games. The difference being is that they don't do much for value for EA afterwards, whereas multiplayer games, you buy the season pass or you buy the levels individually. You can buy, some of them you can do the pay to win sort of thing. And that's why EA have, come under criticism, I think. Anyway, hope that answers your question, Jason. Moving on to Paul Wilson. When you go to the cinema, do you take your own snacks and treats, or do you pay crazy cinema prices? We always take our own treats. I've got to admit I do as well. I mean, what was it, about 6 years ago, I took my son to Showcase Cinema at Teesside Park. And I can't remember what it was. It might have been Cars 2, I think it was. Now, for him and me to go in to the film, and for him to have a Coke and popcorn, ended up costing me £35. That is ridiculous for going to see a movie at the cinema. And it was after that I said, nope, I ain't doing it at all. In a matter of fact, nowadays, when I go out, normally go out with my friend John, and what we do is we meet at McDonald's before we go in. So we'll come home from work, get ready, go out, meet at McDonald's, have a catch up in Mackie D, and then go to the cinema. And that works great for us. So yeah, I tend not to take sweet stuff in unless I take my son in which case, we'll get him bags of it, the stuff that he sort of likes, and, take that in with us. Paul's also asking, was gaming better when the main information for gaming was supplied via monthly magazines in the past? I would be happy spending most of my lunchtime studying W.H. Smiths, reading the latest magazines and spending my evenings playing games. But these days I spend too much time checking out what's coming soon rather than enjoying all of the games or the great games I already own. Well, Paul, I know that you're a PC gamer. My recommendation for you for when you're playing Destiny online, because I know that you do that, is get 2 screens, play Destiny on one, have YouTube playing all of your gaming videos on the other, do both at the same time, saves you a heck of a lot of time. In terms of, do I miss computer magazines and stuff like that? When I stopped getting them, it felt wrong, but now I don't miss them at all because, I can get access to all of that information for free through Flipboard, which is the main thing that I tend to use now. It's subscribed to where I need it to and, get my information that way. If I don't, I'll get it through YouTube or through Gamer Ranks because a lot of the time I'll just put on a YouTube on one screen on my PC, play Destiny on the, or whatever game on the other, and I'll just let the videos continue to go on. So I get to see all sorts of stuff about gaming and PCs and stuff like that. So, I'm not that unhappy that video game magazines are gone, or mostly gone. And to be honest, a lot of them were wrote for the younger market, so, want something a little bit different nowadays, I think. Nearly there. So Nicky Wilson said, so COD is back with a single player campaign this year. Does this prove that taking it out of last year's Black Ops 4 was a mistake? Yes. Scott Kidd, no, in seriousness, yes, it does. It proves that it was completely stupid what they did with Black Ops 4 last year. I played it twice, and that was only because I got it free on my Humble Bundle. I would not have bought it otherwise because it's all online. Some of us don't want to play all online all the time. So Scott Kidd, he's saying, hello guys, long time no speak. I'm glad you're still going strong. Thank you very much. I've had a bit of a dilemma lately. My laptop chip has gone, means it keeps turning itself off. What sucks at the moment is that it's his gaming laptop and it's barely 4 years old, the same as the other one that he had, whereas his gaming PC he built 10 years ago and he's going strong with a first gen i5. Is it time to upgrade the PC with new parts, but much has changed with hard drives, to M2 for the OS only, and no IDE cable for the motherboard case, gone to light show where his Antec 900 was all the rage back when you needed good airflow for good game temperatures. So his question is, change my game case, build a new one from scratch, or give Antec New Series a go, give a go and just get a new laptop, though travel is not needed much as he now lives with his other half. Well, PCs are very personal things. What I would say is I have a gaming PC which I very rarely use, and to be honest, it's not got the best graphics card. It's got a 1050 in. It will do VR at a push. Do I think it's what I wouldn't want to permanently play on that. I think that laptops do tend to get outdated much more quicker than a desktop. The desktop I'm using now is quite old. It has a very much older i7 in there. And what you've got to remember is it might be an i5, but it's not a 9th gen i5 that you've got in your PC. And that means that it's got, different characteristics. It'll be a lot faster. And then when you come to the M.2 drives, then they are significantly faster. When you're looking at solid state media than any of the other ones. So, if you've got an NVMe SSD M2, they're supposed to be the absolute best. My motherboard is the generation before it would be able to read these, so I can't even boot one up from, it's not got the slot on, but also I can't put in a card to boot up from an NVMe. I'm going to have to upgrade to my motherboard, which is why I'm looking at, I'm actually looking at the Ryzen 9 at the moment as the preferred option because of the number of cores that are in there as well. So that will hopefully help with streaming and that sort of stuff. So, but in terms of what you should get, I would seriously look around because building a PC is quite easy. Normally, stuff only ever goes in one way. So it's not really that much of an issue. But if you haven't built a PC for years, it's a lot of money just in case you actually do anything wrong. So I got my last PC from CyberPower. I'm seriously at the moment looking at a bundled motherboard that's got the processor and the memory and everything all installed. You just literally put it in a case, because it is significantly cheaper than buying the bits separately. Talking about, tens of pounds difference for the cheapest prices that I'd been able to find compared to this bundle, and it was to the same standard. So you only need a case, and then the other thing about laptops as well is most of them you can't upgrade the graphics card. So if you've got an older PC and you don't need to have the whole thing of it being portable like with a laptop, then the full desktop tower has got to be a MIDI tower has got to be better than a laptop, because you can upgrade stuff in that so much more easier, and you can add extra stuff in. It's not such a thing nowadays, but you could get two old 1080s and SLI them. Just as an example, you're not going to be able to do that in most laptops unless they're horrendously expensive. I just don't think that laptops are worth being the number one, gaming option for you rather than a fully bodied PC. But that's my point of view. Not everybody agrees it. Lots of people play on gaming PCs, but my experience is their life expectancy is 4 or 5 years, whereas a full PC would be much longer, because you can keep eking it out with little upgrades and stuff like that, which is not going to cost as much money. but the initial outlay is quite great. My PC is a CyberPower PC originally, but I've upgraded the memory, I've upgraded the hard drives, I've done all of that sort of stuff. So that's it. So I hope that's answered your questions. I don't think that we're going to see Steve next week, unfortunately. He's moving house next weekend, and I think he doesn't actually get the internet connected until the Monday. So it might be just me again next week. We'll see how it goes. If you've enjoyed it as well and you want me to do another one, just let us know, because I do have the option of being able to do that in Steve's absence, but hopefully we'll get Steve back as soon as we can to try and get a bit more variety in terms of the views for the show. So in terms of just normal sign off, don't forget you can view my YouTube channel, HRJ UK. Just do a search for that. You can follow me on Twitter at HRJ UK. I'm also on PSN, Xbox Live, Steam, and all of the other platforms as HRJ UK. Also, if you want to support the show, you can support using your Amazon Prime membership and subscribe to my Twitch channel. Just do a search for HRJ UK. If you want to get in contact with the podcast, it's podcast@popculturegamers.co.uk, or you can visit our website at popculturegamers.podbean.com. You can also listen to the show on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, or your Amazon Echo device, using our app or many other different types of podcasting platforms. If you want to support the show in any other ways, you can support us via Patreon, although nobody ever has, or if you would prefer to support the show through non-direct means, you can actually share it, tell your friends about it, or write us a review and pop it on iTunes. That would be very helpful for us. Okay, so that's it for another week. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and it's a good night from me, and it would be a good night from Steve. Good night.
You are about to witness history in the making.